Tesla depreciation is off the charts. Well, maybe your chart's broken or maybe you're looking at it funny because it's actually not that bad. There are some factors to consider, but today we're going to be looking at Toyota versus Tesla and all that good stuff. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Joining me today is my good buddy Mark from The Tesla Life. They do a weekly show and some other shows too throughout the week, over the weekend kind of. That's very insightful, informative, and fun with co-hosts Casey and Patrick rounding out the squad. Sometimes they have special guests, and sometimes their guests are just a little special. I've been on. That's what I'm saying is I've been on. So, and thanks for having me, of course. So, Mark, you found this pretty good one. This story here, let's pull it up. It says, study, Tesla leads with lowest ownership cost, beating even Toyota. Now we'll get into the depreciation part in a minute, but let's talk about this. Tell me what this is all about here.
Yeah, this is Consumer Reports looking at the cost of ownership for a vehicle 1 to 5 years and then 5 to 10 years as they're tracking long-term ownership of a vehicle and comparing it to industry standards, ones that we've talked about all our lives, hearing about the reliability of, say, Toyota products, where they're saying that the cars are a staple of longevity, and they're comparing Tesla now to these type of numbers, because of course the Model 3 now has reached about 6 years old. And the Model S certainly is well into 10 years. So this is something that we're going to be able to really compare apples to apples now, being able to see how Teslas stack up for long-term ownership, and whether the savings from fueling costs also roll into maintenance costs over the long term.
Yes, so let's talk about that, because I'm going to push back. I'll play devil's advocate. This time we can take turns in the future, but for now I'm going to say, yeah, but Toyotas famously are very durable. They don't break, so what kind of costs would you expect over the first 100,000 miles of ownership? I mean, because, you've got your fuel costs. Sure, that's going to be 10 grand in savings, but they're getting very efficient. And if we're talking about a Prius, it's really not that much extra because they get such great mileage. What cost am I going to have to pay on a Prius?
Well, you're going to have the other maintenance costs, especially with a Prius. You've got two systems of propulsion with that vehicle. You've got all the mechanical links for an ICE engine, and of course, you've got the electronic components for the electric side. You've got two systems in one. You're going to have some more maintenance because you got more parts that are working on that vehicle constantly. Whereas with a plain battery electric vehicle, one of those systems is completely gone. You've just got the one that has less moving parts, and less moving parts typically results in less maintenance.
So that means there's no oil changes, there's no radiator flush, there's no transmission flush. But at 100,000, if we were to go even past 10 years, there's no timing belt to replace. There's no, right. I mean, there's other big maintenance
plugs.
No, probably, depending on your driving style, you will never have to change the brake pads in a pure electric car because regenerative braking does so much. I probably owned my Tesla for a half hour of driving before I used the brake pedal.
Right.
And I wasn't on the highway. I was around town.
So this study was looking at actual costs coming from owners, and they were looking at the amounts spent for these vehicles. The 0 to 5 years was really the impressive one because, of course, these vehicles are really only putting a couple $100 a year into maintenance for these vehicles, whereas the ICE vehicles, depending on which one that you looked at, there were ones with over $1,000 a year that was being put into the vehicle. So there's really a wide range of costs when it comes from 0 to 5 years of ownership between ICE and pure electric.
Well, let's go over to this one because I saw another interesting story. I Mark suggested that story, so I dug a little deeper and I went with this guy. Let's compare depreciation. Now, this one is compares deviation from the industry average. And so let's go to this one where you can just see the worth over time. This gray line is the industry average. The green and blue lines would be the green being the Tesla Model 3 and the blue being all Tesla models. You'll see that sometimes the depreciation is worse than other cars. Sometimes it is better. At the moment, it is above average, but the Toyota does pretty well at holding value. Does that surprise you?
No, Toyota has deserved this over time because, of course, it's always been compared to the rest of the auto industry, which has always been ICE vehicles. And Toyota has had a pretty good maintenance record when it comes to longevity. That's not a surprise. That's something that is basically a fact.
I had dinner with my brother-in-law last night, and he has a Toyota Tacoma with 308,000 miles on it, and he has decided, I'm just going to drive it till it dies. And I said, that might be a while, because, and this truck is beaten to heck. He was a roofer and used it all the time for work, is not in the mood to die, and it's been around for a good long time. Now, I would add to this the context that this depreciation chart for Toyota is a bit misleading because they're using MSRP rather than the cost that people actually paid. The MSRP during the shortage was irrelevant. You could not buy a car for MSRP. Bear from Bear's workshop at the time during COVID was buying as many vehicles as he could. He went to dealerships through the entire Southeast, Southwest, and West, and every dealership he went to, he would look at them and say, how close to MSRP can you get? Some of them would say, come in, we'll sell you anything on the lot at MSRP. And then he'd get there and they'd say, well, we'll do that, but you have to buy one of these BS packages that means nothing. Like you have to buy the oil changes for life from us, even though you live in another state and we can't honor it. So that's not painting a complete picture. If it doesn't matter what the sticker price is if you can't pay that price. So that's not really factored in. I'm going to share one more because this is fun. This is a year old. This is when in California, the Model 3 is now cheaper than a Toyota Camry because of state incentives. Well, the incentives have gotten more robust. The incentives have gotten more robust in many cases, and the prices have gotten even more competitive. A Model 3 has gotten less expensive over the past year. A Model Y has gotten less expensive. And in some states, you can get a Model Y for something like, in Washington, for a limited time coming soon, you'll be able to get a Model Y for less than $30,000 when you stack the federal and state incentives, which is bonkers. That's amazing. And then
It absolutely is.
Yeah, and then you get another
that's something recent from Washington, right? This just happened.
Yes, very recent, and it's going to be very short-lived. And we do pay an extra $200 a year, I think it is, as an EV registration tax because we don't pay any gas taxes. But that's, fine. It's $24 a month. That's less than $1 a day. You're still saving far more on gas. And in Washington State, we have very affordable electricity. My rate is under 8 cents a kilowatt. So that means I can fill up all the way from nothing for like $4.50. And people go, well, right, but you've got your connection fee and all. Right, those don't change though. Those fees remain the same whether I use the juice or not. So it's very exciting. My question is, how cheap does it have to get? I'm still getting comments from people on YouTube saying, no, you're doing it all wrong because the Prius gets 50 miles to the gallon. It is actually cheaper when you factor everything in. And I say, I've done the math so many different ways. I've seen people I trust doing the math different ways, and I haven't found a way to justify getting a slower, less advanced, less safe vehicle for more money. It doesn't add up to me. What am I missing, Mark?
I don't think you're missing much, Brian. I think that there are some people that are never going to believe it, no matter what. But the math that's being done here, as well as the environmental benefits and the health benefits of having an EV, far outweigh using a nice car.
What about insurance? That's one. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Insurance. I was quoted a cajillion dollars for insurance.
Find another insurance agent,
That's
because what I found is that with my switch from sedan to sedan, it was the same price. So I didn't have to go looking because my insurance agency said it's the same price.
so my insurance went up because I bought a new car, not because I bought a electric car, but my car was what, 8 years old. So my coverage on that car, there's not much to cover. It's not worth much. Um, you have to compare it to a like vehicle. I've seen people say, well, I was paying $30 a month and they want 150. And it's like, well, 150 is actually pretty reasonable for a new car. What were you trading out of? And it's something 20 years old.
Yeah.
And they only had, liability on it. Guys, compare it to a comparable new car. They're not more likely to be totaled than other cars. Any accident that ends up reported, there's a 25% chance it is a total, regardless of brand, because it doesn't take a whole lot of damage for the parts to repair it and labor for it to equal more than the car is realistically worth at that time. These aren't Cobras. I've seen, did you know if you total a Shelby Cobra, it's not totaled. Someone will buy the chassis with the VIN attached and rebuild it because it's just worth too much. It's worth more money than anything. So if you still got that VIN, it's still a Cobra. Even if that ship of Theseus has no other parts. Oh, you guys, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Mark, I thank you for being gracious with your time and flexible this week. It's been a difficult week for me with some things going on outside the channel that could not be postponed or avoided. And I appreciate that. And and I appreciate all you guys out there. Leave comments, tell us what we're missing. What do we miss? What do we misunderstand? All that good stuff. Smack your thumbs and all that. Do what you got to do. And stay tuned. Stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots, when you finally realize that, yes, indeed, these cars are the cheapest to own. Last week I did this presentation for the EV Association, and it was EV myths, and I had a good 30 people there. And the first question I asked, show of hands, how many of you own EVs? Of those 30, how many hands came up?
I would say all of them.
One.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I found it. I found a room of unicorns. My gosh, I'm pulling out all the stops. And the problem I had was I said all dozen of these could be their own speech, their own presentation. So forgive me if the overview is a bit high, but you can ask questions at the end. And in the comments of the video, because I published it, I had a whole lot of people who didn't watch the video and just spouted nonsense.
Oh, no.
So that's the bonus content for anyone who hung around. For the bonus, you're welcome and thank you.